Hello and welcome back to Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy Podcast. My name is Nina Itzel. I'm here with my sister, Libby, again. Probably most of you who follow the podcast know her already. And this is going to be a very yummy, interesting episode today. I wanted you to come on, sister, to talk about some things that happened, in the recent past that we didn't cover in the previous podcast, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. And we were talking about how when we are healing ourselves and changing our behavior and changing how we respond to different things, changing old patterns, sometimes when we get into a very stressful situation, when we feel very overwhelmed and we think that okay, we are good, we change that behavior, and then sometimes we can regress back into old behaviors when we are under extreme stress or when we feel emotionally overwhelmed, and these can be great triggers to kind of see how well we can manage to keep up those good behaviors that we have been creating and putting into practice. So as we talk about here with the medicine as well, I think one of the main characteristic of the medicine is that if you work with this medicine in a conscious and responsible way, just really help you to uproot these self-limiting and self-destructive patterns and center you and ground you in your own power. So even when you get into intensity, get into triggers, big triggers or overwhelming situations, you are able to hold that anchor and you are not falling back, so to say. We even use these words, falling back into the old behavior and patterns. So long story short, for the intro, thank you so much, sister, for coming, and I so appreciate you, and thank you for all your help. We have this room on Clubhouse. If you don't know about it, check it out, link in the description, where we have these live rooms about ayahuasca and ayahuasca integration every second week, and Libby helps me to moderate that room, and it's been so much fun. The last few months we met so many cool people there. So I really appreciate that, and your willingness and openness, to talk about these things and really, to bring your biggest fears and to communicate it into the world. Like, I think that takes, a lot of courage. So I just want to acknowledge that. And yeah, my question is, so I just want to start with that last year, you got COVID. And I know that a lot of people, now after this 2.5 years, we all have certain association to this word, and probably when this word is said, most people have some kind of fear and anxiety, within them, because everything that we've been through as a collective, humanity. So tell me about a little bit that experience. How was that for you? That you're having this like cool, calm, quiet, relaxed life, and then boom, suddenly this happens.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is something that is just an amazing practice for me to be able to speak, and use my throat chakra in this way. My throat is one of the reasons why, actually, it's probably the ultimate reason why I ended up sitting with the medicine in the first place, and ultimately going through this process. So also, Nina, so well said, that introduction. I'm sure anyone that has stumbled upon this room or comes to this room religiously, this podcast, can relate to everything that you just said. And, just one more thing, definitely check out the Clubhouse. It's been really wonderful for us to be able to come together as a community every Tuesday. Depending on what time zone you're in. I'm in Mountain Standard Time, so 3:00 in the afternoon every Tuesday, Mountain Standard Time. You could do your time change on your own there, but it's just an amazing refresher, and to be able to talk to someone like Nina for free is also a huge bonus. So definitely check it out if you can. If you need a link to the Clubhouse, we'll figure out how to get that to you. So yeah, to go back to the subject of this very interesting, potentially controversial, maybe triggering podcast. Something that is, super interesting for me is that I actually went through my integration. My integration after sitting with the medicine started just before the COVID pandemic started in March. So just, a quick recap. I started my pre-integration work with Nina in October of 2019. I sat with the medicine in December of 2019. And then, the first 3 months of the integration were the first 3 months of 2020. And then, month 4, all of a sudden it was COVID. So the whole world shut down. So as Nina kind of implied, I was living this like very quiet, pretty calm life all of a sudden, after, pretty much almost a lifetime of anxiety and just living in fear, which was what brought my anxiety, depression, and chronic pain into my life. So it was very interesting to be, forced to go inward by society in a way, that also coincided so wonderfully with this pandemic. So I was actually I think that I was really lucky to have had that blessing in disguise, and it was just another opportunity for me to look for the good in a situation like this. So yes, I so it is also like such a time warp nowadays to put together these years, because like just the world has changed so much and society has changed with it a little bit. So, that was that full year of integration was all of 2020 for me. And so, whatever, whatever happened with society and COVID and people's triggers and everything happened throughout that year. And then 2021 started. And then, we all lived with this like heightened sense of, whatever it was, I kind of like took it as fear mongering. So I was really just listening to myself and staying true to myself and choosing, my own path and standing in my own power throughout pretty much most of this. And so, yes, when I did get a positive test result for this illness it was late July of 2021, it was really one of those first experiences for me, after making all of these profound changes in my life and not really quite experiencing such a situation where I reverted back into this fear. I noticed just immediately, I don't know what it, like you could call it, the triggers, the shadows, all of the things that I thought that I had grown out of and just gotten past and changed. They just came like rushing back in so quickly. And not only was I, going through getting over these physical symptoms, but I was also extremely aware of how maybe I wasn't as good as I thought that I was. And, then you like get down on yourself for, oh, I thought I was over that, but like now I have all this anxiety and fear all over again. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, it's not working. Well, from my experience with this, I always say that awareness is the key when it has to do with integration. And, I think that it was just part of the process. I know I don't think I know that it was just part of the process. So I definitely feel like I'm rambling at this point. But I have a lot more to say. I have so much more to say about this. So if you could just reel me in a little bit more,
Yeah,
maybe I could, get
totally.
more onto the topic. So
Yeah, so let's just start with just saying to the audience that uh, during the first big half of the pandemic, you were quite isolated and had this like sheltered kind of time, very limited interaction, and you were taking good care of yourself. You know that you have a very good diet and lifestyle and exercise. And all of these things, and you were taking care in your own way, as you knew how to stay healthy and to stay grounded and positive. So what happened, like, do you remember that time when you got this test, and how did you feel, and what happened in the first few days? What did you do, and then how things evolved from there?
yeah, so like you just said, I have a history of, living a very healthy lifestyle. Um, I have a good, I have a good system, and at the end of the day, what the medicine has shown me over and over again is that I have the ability to heal myself, and you know, I, I, I saw it in so many ways, and so when I spent a year and a half or 2 years or however long it was, um, just continuing these practices of continuing to eat well, being extra aware of eating well, um, practicing positive talk to myself. Like that's especially the positive talk is something that was much newer to me. So, um, you know, all of a sudden when I got this positive test result, um, I like had I had panic attacks all over again, and for me to have like graduated from having these panic attacks or just grown so far away from even the thought of like having a panic attack again in the way that it happened to me when I read that positive test result. I It was actually like debilitating all over again. And kind of like you had said, I just like there was a part of me like now looking back, I'm like, how did I used to live like this all the time?
Right.
One, like I know that's not really something, that you asked, but it was just like, okay, I can look at it this way or I can look at it that way, you know? Um, which way am I going to go? Like, which path am I going to take? Am I going to remember the way it felt to have panic attacks all the time and fall into the state of fear? Or am I going to, um, you know, take what I've learned from my integration and what the medicine has taught me and still teaches me every day? That was a lesson. And I was able to, continue working with the medicine in this situation. So what I did was I found a balance. I found a balance. I was triggered. I fell into the fear. Um, there was a huge amount of collective fear just in the world and the atmosphere, and a lot of things going on personally. So what I did was, like I said, I took a balance of that. What was going to make me feel better? And, you know, the old me would have done certain things, but the new me decided to take it this way. So I reached out to multiple modalities, multiple people, for advice and to just feel like I was the most prepared as I could be. And like I said, that's what I did in this situation. And ultimately, acting in that way did, it did bring me out of the fear. And it did remind me that, despite certain opinions of other people, I wasn't going to be manipulated. I wasn't going to be influenced by any specific opinion, and that ultimately the only opinion that mattered at the end of the day was mine. I do appreciate and am grateful for the different opinions that were available to me. But despite me being very vulnerable, despite me being in this state of fear, I was able to take this first pretty triggering and vulnerable situation, filled with lots of shadows, and stand in my boundaries. And that was something that in the past I recognized that barely existed at all. I didn't even know what boundaries were. So I thought that was, especially looking back and being able to have the opportunity to talk about it again, I just it's so interesting because I at the end I just trusted myself, and turns out I'm fine. But I knew I was going to be fine. Like I said, I have a pretty specific active lifestyle. I practice a lot of yoga asana. Anyone who knows me from the other podcasts or on Clubhouse knows that. And I make everything that I put in my body from scratch, with lots of love and in my house. And so
Can't wait to go to your kitchen.
I can't wait to have you here.
I know you always send me the beautiful pictures of your creations, and so yummy.
So fun. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, thank you. Well, I think that probably all of us who are listening or are coming across this podcast can relate that fear is something that is the most difficult to handle from all the emotions, and especially when there is great fear. If you are in a state of panic, you are in that kind of survival mode and you acting upon that fear, right? And that's familiar for most people, and that's when the fear gets so overwhelming that we get stuck in that fear, and we get the panic attack, and we are in that constant state of fear, and we are in that survival mode. So when we are in that survival mode, then we are not able to use logic and insight and discernment and intuitive guidance, because those kind of attributes are overwritten by the reptilian brain, which is the survive at all costs. And what happens normally when we are in this state, we are looking for help, looking for a solution, looking for an answer, and then normally people listen to the person who shouts the loudest or is the more aggressive, telling you what to do. And because you are afraid and you are confused and you don't know what to do because you don't have access to that, because you are in that state of fear and activation and survival. Therefore, just to get out immediately from the fear, people just, make a decision and listen to that most influential person who is close to them at that moment. And that's what's happening, when there is no awareness, but it's kind of like an automatic response. And I think it was so beautiful how you described that, what happened to you, that you have the awareness. So, and you always say, and we always say here, it's not just in ayahuasca integration, I think in life general, awareness is the key, So even though, you were in a state of panic and fear, but you had the awareness. So that means already that you were not completely lost, because you were able to observe that I am in fear, I am in a panic. so that's already, like a great step forward. And then you made, okay, I need to take some positive action, to calm down first before I make any decision. So that was the first thing that you didn't do, to make a decision out of the fear and the panic, whatever that decision may be. But
Yep.
you took time to take positive action to calm down. And I remember that you were doing breath work and, listening to the guided meditation and,
Yes.
just using a lot of tools that you have to calm your system down, and also to reach out to support people, and get
Mm-hmm.
their perspective and their information into consideration, and exploring, different options that you had at that moment. And then
Yes.
once you managed to calm down first, and you were not in that state of panic, and you reached out and you had a bunch of information, because you explored, what avenues you can take. Then you sit with this information, and you tuned into yourself, and said, okay, what feels best for me, what feels best for my body, myself, which path, to
Yes.
take is
So
most aligned with me.
I feel like I was the one who was finally speaking the loudest. Like I was the one who got to be the lion. I was the one who got to be the lion in this time. And that's something, because before I started this healing and awakening, I was always acting out of a state of fear, because I was always in fear. So I never trusted myself. I always trusted whatever anyone else said, or whatever the other lions were saying. Whoever, like you said, was screaming the loudest, I would just be like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go that road. And it's
Yeah,
like, really,
so
it's so
true.
cool that I was able to like it's just said, I was the one who got to make the decisions this time, and it should be that way. But like
Absolutely. And and
but
and the trust, I think what you're saying is that you learn from your work with the medicine to trust your body, to trust
yes,
yourself, and you learn that that works out for you good. You learn that from experience. It's not some
yeah,
intellectual, spiritual blah blah that we are talking about, but you learned,
I
from
did.
experience of, like, how does your life look like when you listen to always other people, and how does it look
Yep.
like when you follow your own, best assessment, and and decision making. And that's what you did,
Exactly.
right
Yeah.
now, which is the most amazing accomplishment, regarding that there was a huge fear present that normally, overwhelms people. So the awareness is not there, and then you are regressing back into. And I remember that you had pressure, so there were people around you who were very aggressively were trying to convince you and manipulate you to follow their advice, whatever that may be.
Hmm.
And you had
That's correct.
to firmly establish boundaries there, in order so you can preserve your sovereignty, and not allow
Yes.
other people to push you or to bully into something that you do not want.
Yeah, so you're right. These are some more things that I had that were really difficult for me to do, but I got the opportunity to practice, not just not just the boundary, but an extended form of the boundary, which was distance from um, from some aggressive people that that I did reach out to, and that did know of my situation, and that were um, uh, offering advice forcefully, but it didn't align with my beliefs. And because of that, um, because of that aggression, and because of, like, just that feeling of um, disconnect, I guess, that I just, like you said, in order to stand in my power and regain, obtain, sustain my sovereignty, yes, I did have to practice this form of distancing, and most of that distance is still in place today. So um, it's just the way it is, but I'm really healthy, and I feel good about myself, and
Yeah,
I
I
feel good
just
about my
wanted to
choices.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted to ask, like, how did everything work out for you? Because that's, always we're measuring by the results. So, like what
well,
happened, like how long it was, how are you feeling now? What was the route that you took, and yeah, what's happening? So, do you deem it as a success, listening and trusting yourself, or you say, no, I should have listened to that other person?
uh, no, it would definitely be a success that I listened to myself. Ultimately, no matter what, I do just feel like this was a very unique experience and opportunity to be able to go through this type of navigation at this at this point in my life. And I think that a lot of people might be able to relate to it. And I hope that whoever's listening maybe can. So yeah.
Absolutely. And as people can see, you are completely recovered and completely healthy. And, that is the testament of, okay, whatever you chose, to be your path, it did work out for you. So again, this is another reassurance for us. This is how we gain these experiences and building that trust back in ourselves. I think that was like so broken for a lot of people. And yeah, I wanted to ask you, how does it feel? Do you feel even more empowered and confident and powerful after this experience? Because I think that that's quite a big thing, that the power of the fear, I'm sure everybody experienced that in their life. It can be so gripping and so paralyzing, so to overcome, this power, and say, hey, you are not the boss here, I am the boss here. That I think that's quite
Yeah.
that
Wow.
builds up your self-esteem a little bit. So how are you feeling?
I mean, you just said it so well. Yeah. I mean, so many times, yes. Because like the thing is, when I um when I first made the choice or made the decision to start working with the medicine, like I had to overcome so many physical ailments and emotional and spiritual ailments that were like way way more severe than what I was going through or feeling with COVID. So I feel like I might need to answer that in like a big picture and the smaller picture, because even like the COVID situation is such a small, I mean, it was a really big like stepping stone and like learning situation, but at the same time, it's all like, it seems so little in the big picture, which is all like, it's really cool. So it's just like, if I could make those choices and overcome everything else that I overcame, like, of course, I'm gonna, overcome something like this. And yeah, sometimes when I do go into the story, or when I do describe it to like friends, or anyone who wants to like hear my story or listen about it, I do feel like it was like a mini spiritual reset to go through this whole testing positive for COVID situation, and everything else that I went through, got to go through, that happened for me when I was sick. So yeah, I I do feel like, um I kind of forget, I forget what you asked me, but
I was wondering that if there was any learning for you from this
oh,
situation, and if there was, what would you say the learning was for you, from this situation, that your takeaway?
my like I think the biggest takeaway is that um not to ever, think that everything is finished, and that everything is, perfect and um totally complete. I mean, it is, but like, don't be afraid when or if, something like this does happen, whether it's like little or big. And, um, certain triggers do come back, or certain old patterns or conditioning do come back, because it's just another lesson, and it's just something that gives you a choice to continue to grow in your path. And oh my gosh, yeah. That's what I learned the most. And like, kind of the whole theme of this is that I'm so grateful for this to happen to me, because I was able to really be reminded that I'm my own healer, and that I need to listen to myself. And that's the best way that I'm going to grow in all of these aspects. So yes, that's what I mostly learned from
Wow,
this. And
that's
how
beautiful.
I was really reminded, how paralyzing fear is. Like I kind of said at the beginning, how did I used to live like this? Like, no more of this. Like, bring it back to me once in a while, so that I know, so that I know how to, continue to navigate this. But for sure, like, uh, we should make decisions out of like faith and love and self, and not out of fear. That's what I learned the most.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. And, I wanted to share this because I think just so many people facing deep
Yeah.
fears, right now, and have to make, strong decisions and big decisions in their life, in their regarding, not just necessarily their health, but, any other areas in their life. And that's my belief, very strongly, that the best decision we can only make for ourselves, because nobody really knows what's best for you, because nobody knows you as well as you
Yeah.
know yourself. But at the same time, we need to be able to tune in to that voice, that is telling us, what is that is coming from within,
Yeah.
and saying,
Especially if
and
it's
I
new for you. Yeah.
yeah,
For
and
those
I
of us
think
who,
that exactly, that
yeah.
many people also more likely to listen to other people's opinion, because they are so disconnected from this inner voice and they do
Yes.
not hear it, and then of course what you're gonna do, you have to make a decision. You will make the decision based on all the other voices that you're hearing.
Right.
And yeah, it might be that some of the people who listen to this podcast will not be, in agreement with this, but I invite you, whichever perspective you have, to think about your life and what works for you. Whatever you're doing, how does it working for you? Because I think that's, for me, a good way to measure things. If I'm not sure that, okay, is this for my benefit or is this for my detriment, sometimes it can get a little bit of confused. And I think it's a good question to ask. We always talk about here to ask the good question, how is this working out for me, this behavior, this, this whatever, this decision, or whatever that is that you're doing. You can ask this question and just be honest with yourself. You don't even have to tell anybody, just honest with yourself, and you can really see what is working, what is not working. We are advocating for this here because we have the experience, both ways. So
Yeah.
you can compare that. Okay, how was my life, as Libby said, gripped in anxiety and pain and fear and
Yeah.
everything, when you were disconnected from this voice saying,
Always looking outward. I was always
yeah,
looking for external sources, and like,
yeah,
that just wasn't working for me. Like,
exactly.
time and time again, my patterns weren't, when I was, presenting that behavior, it wasn't working for me. So,
Exactly.
you know,
And
yeah.
as we are saying also here, you are the healer. So, the medicine is a catalyst, and we talk obviously about the medicine because we are very passionate about this subject, but we always say, that is your dedicated everyday work that this makes this happen. And as Libby said, like, she has practices and habits that she developed, that are self-serving, and keeping her in alignment and in that state of, groundedness, where she can, hear that voice and follow, her own guidance. And that is important, that is very important, that we keep doing this work and apply what we learned, and apply it especially in difficult situations, and trust ourselves that we are able, to overcome, and we are able to take the power back and take the reign back, even though we
Yeah.
are maybe triggered or we are overwhelmed momentarily. We can come back to that center, we can come back to that voice, and I think for me that's very relaxing, that's a very relieving thought, and
Yes, like
very,
this is just temporary. That
yeah,
was kind of
comforting at
another thing.
least.
That was
Exactly.
another thing that really, helped get me through it was, like these symptoms are just temporary and I'm gonna be okay. It's this will pass. So,
Yeah,
and that's in so many things in life too, like so
yeah,
many things.
this
So,
too shall pass. I think I was
yeah,
considering one moment to have that as a tattoo, but I remember I don't need it to be written on my skin. But I think that's very true. And sometimes, we feel that, oh my God, this is gonna last forever, and that's very unlikely. As the one thing
yeah.
that is probably sure is change. So we have to go with that. I want to ask you, because this is a question that sometimes we talk about, because we say love is the medicine. And so, what is your definition of love? What would you say, being through like such a deep
Oh my.
experience in the last few years, like what would you say love is for you, and what is like love and self-love, and how do you feel this in your life? Like, what do you think about that?
That's a really deep question. Wow. So to me, love is just, love. Whenever I ask myself, what is love? I start with like, pure white light. And then from there, it just, just it like radiates like the vibrations of kindness, um, wholeness, being held, holding space, um, just it's just like a feeling of like abundance and beauty. And it's like this is such a crazy question. Like um and like because love is healing, love is everything, love is literally everything, it's the highest vibration, it's literally just everything that's good, everything that's good. And
I love that. Love
yeah,
everything that's good is love.
love is everything that's good.
I love that.
I love
I
you.
really love that.
We can
how
use
how
that. Love is everything
yes.
that's good. Yeah.
How do you feel that your relationship with yourself became so much more loving, like in the last few years? How does that manifest? How does that look like, when if I would want to explain somebody, hey, self-love, and they were like, I have no idea what does that mean?
Yeah. I used to not know what self-love meant either, like self-care. Um, like it is not like it's not like bath bombs and like bubble baths and like face masks. Like that stuff is cool and like fun and like it could be, part of a routine. But self-love to me has just turned into like um I mean, I didn't even really think about it so much this way until literally sitting here like live in this podcast is choosing love over fear. Like literally just choosing love over fear because I'm sitting here like remembering the way that I used to treat myself. Granted, at the time, I was not aware of my choices because I was, living in a state of victimhood. But when I was constantly living in fear, that wasn't that wasn't self-love and that wasn't self-care. I was like destroying my body. because I was like
Right.
anxious all the time and I was like living in this survival mode, how we just described. So now self-care was making that choice to like walk this path instead. And with the awareness comes the choice. And so, like, moving out of those destructive patterns of like almost basically abuse. I know it's abuse now. I didn't know at the time, but self love is just, taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, trusting yourself. Like, just the simple act of trusting yourself it demonstrates so much love for yourself. Like, that is so much love for yourself. It's just like, it seems like really basic, but I think like in our society today, it's really easy to second guess yourself or look outside for things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't ask for advice. Definitely, like, you know, do what you got to do, but at the end, ask yourself the good questions. And I think that trusting yourself um is like one of the most like deepest one of the deepest acts of self-love. So
I think so
um
too. That is so true. And
yeah.
I so love it that you said it this way, and the boundaries as well, which is, saying no at
Putting
certain
myself
moments, which
first.
is which is
Yeah.
so so difficult for so many people,
Yeah.
for
I
so
still
many
work
other.
on it all the time.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Work in
it's a
progress.
practice. Yes, it
But
is such a
that's
practice.
Yeah. And I read,
Yeah.
a quote about this, and I felt that's really like hit home for me as well, that it said that healing is self-love. If you
Oh
heal
my
yourself,
gosh.
if you are going in a path of healing and awakening and want to release your suffering and feel better, that's because you care about yourself and care about your life. So even to be committed, to do healing work, therapy work, that's a huge act of self-love, I
Oh
think.
my gosh. I think like I just got the chills because yeah. Yeah. I that it's very I resonate so much with that. And I think that's like kind of exactly why I did it and continuing to do it. Um, I'm just way more aware of it now. So it comes a lot more naturally, which is also just very liberating that you know, it, a lot of it is like consciousness for sure, but the more you practice it and the more you're aware of it is just it that becomes your new normal.
Right, absolutely. We can have a new
Uh,
normal, a better normal, hopefully. So I think that's a good way to close. So yeah, let us know
yeah.
what you think in the comments, or yeah, send us a message if you want to share your story, how you face your fears and work through that, or manage, to liberate yourself from the grip of fear, because I think that's definitely
Oh,
worth
it's a
telling,
really good topic.
topic
Yeah.
worth sharing for
Tell me
sure.
what you do.
Yeah, tell us what you did and how much do you love yourself now and how
Yeah.
wonderful your life is. And yeah, leave your comments if you liked, and please share this video. We are relying on you guys to put this out and share this with people who might be interested, the topics that we are talking about here. I want to say a big thank you for everybody who is listening and was listening in the last 2 years to this podcast, because we have more than 5,000 downloads, so that's pretty cool. I have no idea who are the people, so it's like somewhere in the ether, I guess. But yeah, I'm super happy, and that's why we are doing this, and we'll keep continue doing this, because there's a lot of good, juicy topics, that we want to still talk about. So yeah, come and see us in Clubhouse with Libby, like every second Tuesday. We're gonna have it next Tuesday, not tomorrow,
Not tomorrow, but the one after.
but
So
the
I
one
think it's April
after.
5th,
Yeah,
5th
we're gonna
April.
put the link in the description.
Yeah.
Description, and yeah, join Clubhouse is really cool. There are very nice people, very good conversations. Worth checking it out, and it's interactive, so you can participate. It's audio only, so You know, if you are like shy, don't worry, nobody will see you. You don't even have to speak, you can just
Yeah.
listen, but you can also participate. I really like it because it's interactive. And yeah, have a lot of things brewing. If you are interested in training to be an ayahuasca integration professional who helps people in the preparation and in the integration phase, so it's not serving the medicine or about holding ceremony, then check out my website avatarhealingarts.com per training, and that's where you find all the information about that. And yeah, write us or comment, if you have any particular topic that you want to hear
Yes.
about, and then we can, tailor some podcasts to what you want to hear about, because it's important that, for us, because I think we have so much in our mind, we could just talk for a good while, but it's good to hear your feedback. So thank you for listening. Thank you for following and sharing and subscribing to my channel. Thank you, Libby, so much for coming today.
Thank you.
I'm gonna, yeah, do you have anything else you would like to share before we finish?
No. Thank you so thank you
Yeah,
so much for
that was a deep dive. Thank you for sharing your heart so honestly and openly, and yeah, courageously, and showing a brilliant example for people. So love you,
yeah, thank
sister.
you.
Yeah,
Love
sending
you.
lots of love from our hearts to your hearts, to everybody. See you in the next podcast. Lots of love.